So to those who are already with us, welcome. And as you probably all know, I'm Neal Schindler. I'm the co-chair of the Spokane Jewish Cultural Film Festival. And I'm really pleased today to be joined by Barnabás Tóth, the director of Those Who Remained. And I'll give you a very quick introduction, and then we'll start in on the Q&A. So Barnabás Tóth is a twice Oscar-shortlisted Hungarian writer, director, and actor. His short film, My Guide, from 2013, became one of the most successful shorts ever made in Hungary. And his 2018 short film, Chuchotage, was shortlisted for the 2019 Oscars. His second feature, Those Who Remained, premiered at the Telluride Film Festival and was shortlisted for the Best International Film category at the 2020 Oscars. So please join me in welcoming Barnabás Tóth.
Hello, good evening, or good day to you there. Good evening for me here in Budapest, and thanks for the invitation, Neal.
Yes, indeed. He's kind enough to stay up till 9 to start here. We're
it's
quite
okay. I just put the kids in bed. I've given her like a fairy tale. I read myself, but then I was kicked out by my wife because she's a better reader and people wanted her. So I came down here to Q&A with you.
As the father of a 4.5-year-old, I relate to pretty much all of that. So, all right. Well, I would love to start talking with you about the film. For those who are in attendance, please feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat as we go, as they occur to you, and I can incorporate them in the conversation. And then at the end, if folks have any comments or questions, we can maybe unmute, but we'll start out with the chat, I think. So first of all, I do know that the story for the film came from, the basic idea came from a 2004 novel. Yeah.
Correct.
And I'm wondering, how did you and or also your co-writer decide that this was the story that you wanted to adapt to film?
I think it came very early. It came at the moment where I started to read, because it really jumps in the middle, starts with in the middle of a conversation when the girl is at the first visit in his office. And from that moment, it's so easy and soft to read, despite this horrible subject, that the Hungarian title of the book is even something like, if I would translate, a girl's book of a man's time. So there is this great contradiction in this book, the man's time, the horrors of the Holocaust, and the communist regime. We just succeeded in 4 years. Imagine that intensity of history and tragedy of history. And at the same time, a beautiful, almost love relationship, which is so pure and so innocent and so sacrificial.
Okay, well, thank you. And what was the co-writing experience like? How did you share in the work of writing the screenplay with your co-writer? The process.
So first, yes. So first, the writer of the book is alive. She's a psychologist and a friend of mine, all at the same time. And she gave me like freedom to adopt. So I wrote the first script by myself, and I was not happy about it. And I couldn't find a good ending to my film, because the ending of the book is too complex and too superficial, and I don't know, it's not a good ending for a novel. Even she admits it. She doesn't like the ending of her own book. So, but I couldn't find any better. And then I gave it to a professional screenwriter, a lady. She's about 60, and she opened my eyes for two directions, which is the contradiction of the relationship, the mutual affection, and the other thing was maybe about the feelings of Aldo, to make it clearer at the end. Yes.
Very good. Okay. So I'll get into more specific aspects of the film in a few minutes, but I'm curious if there were particular ideas that you most wanted the film to convey as its director.
Are there any interruptions? Can you hear me? Can you see me all right?
Yes, so
okay,
far
thanks.
so
Just
good.
tell me. Don't let me hang in the air without opening.
No, I wouldn't. Yes, so any themes or ideas that you most wanted the film to bring across to an audience?
Ideas? What do you mean by ideas?
Well, I guess there are filmmakers who make a film and they want the audience to come away with a particular sense of the world or a particular perspective, or even just to provoke questions or thoughts about a subject, that sort of thing. I don't know if there may not have been.
Not
I mean,
not really. I'm not a good conversational with the brain of the audience generally. I talk to the heart. So I would like to avoid ideas, and instead I trust in feelings. And I just fell in love with the complexity of his feelings. So that's the psychology which interested me in the film, and not the Holocaust, and not the Jewish heritage, and not the communist terrorism, and not the tragical fate of Hungarian nation in the 40s and 50s or something like this. That's the background. That's yes.
It informs the story, but the story itself is very intimate, human scale, interpersonal story that doesn't get caught up as much in everything that's going on, even though that still has an influence. That was my kind of point of view. But as you say, it's very human scale.
Yes, and so sorry, I just another idea that
No,
I had a very limited budget and a very short time to shoot it, only 19 days. 19 days for the whole shooting of the film. So I knew I had to focus on interiors and on intimate chamber situations. So I have two protagonists. I don't have too many exteriors, too many extras and stunts to pay, and no set decoration. I have money for actors. So I had to concentrate on actors.
Well, and that leads me actually to a question I was going to ask a little later, but we'll skip to it now. I'm curious as to how you found and decided to cast, and I'll try to pronounce her name correctly, but we'll see, Abigail Zoki? As Suke. Yes. Suke, very good, as Clara, because she is, as I mean, I'm sure other festival staff and critics have all identified her as, clearly a rising star. If she's not already in the time since you made the film, if she's not already a star, she's clearly on her way there if she wants to be.
I really hope so. She was one of the top 5 young hopes of European cinema or something like this in the Berlin Film Festival organized by Variety. So she might be even ranked like on an international level, hopefully, if she gets offers. But right now, as you know, the world is just shut down and production is mainly shut down, especially international production. So not many castings going on, not many shootings, obviously due to the virus. So her career might not, explode very soon, but I hope maybe, yes. She's amazing, I think.
And so how is it that you found her and cast her?
Through really original casting. I have a great casting director, and she cast high schools, drama schools, earlier films, theater productions. So we found her with a little experience already, although she was still at high school, but she had some theater work already behind and one movie behind with a small part. So she appeared, and then, we had maybe like top 20 choice, and then top 5, and then she made to the top 3. So I dug with 3 candidates. I dug down. I had camera tests. I had deep conversations, and finally, with a clear heart, we could say it's her. And obviously, we are very happy with the result. Yes.
Yeah, I would think so. We have a question from an audience member, from Marty. Marty says, also kept the lines very between the two of them very clear. Why did you choose the one very physically intimate scene, which I think probably Marty is alluding to the scene in which it seems as though a neighbor is being, a neighboring apartment is being, I don't know, stormed, or the neighbor is being taken, possibly. Marty says, I found myself saying out loud, don't do it. So I guess the question in there is, why did you decide to have that one scene that brings them closest to crossing a line?
So that you can find yourself saying out something loud in the cinema, which is amazing to hear for a director. But seriously speaking, in the books, it's very different in the book. And since you asked, I can tell you that the nature of the scene is different. In the book, he introduces her to sexuality at that night, but very educationally, you know, without any sexual desire. It's more like an instinct that before he's taken to, you know, maybe to lifetime prison, or to even to death, or to Gulag, to deep Soviet Union, to some labor for 10, 20 years. So before that, he as a gynecologist, as a stepfather, he wanted to show the pleasure to her, but just with the hands, you know. But it's a beautiful scene in the book. But imagine putting it into picture and making it a part of this movie. Impossible. That would have ruined the whole thing, because you cannot explain the psychology that in that detail behind with pictures and dialogue. You know, you have to write the book, because that can go more explained, you know, that can go deeper.
Right. And I think that it would have changed the entire thing, and it wouldn't have been about anything but that then. So probably a fine choice.
Maybe it could have made it to the Cannes Film Festival and have some European awards from the European critics, but I would have lost the majority of my regular audience, I think.
Sure. So I was struck on the second viewing at the fact that there aren't, as far as I remember, just having seen it, there aren't any typical conventional flashbacks, but rather Clara has several visions of family members. The one I found most heartbreaking is the when she's in the bath, the vision of her sister. But there are those, and then there are also, of course, the pictures that she looks at from Aldo's past. But no flashbacks of the kind that one often finds, and maybe a little too often in films, about the aftermath of the Holocaust, that take the characters back into the camps, literally and visually. And I think it also would have been a very different film if it had had those. I appreciate how you did what you did in reflecting on their trauma, and I'm interested to know what informed that approach to how to depict their trauma.
I think somehow intentionally, but not consciously, but intentionally, I felt in the pre-production that showing anything with pictures from that era, by the way, scenes that we have so many times seen already on cinema, too many times. Yeah, because it's very hard to make it into picture. And the best film, what showed us the potential to live through what they felt, is Son of Soul.
Another Hungarian film, yes?
Yes. Because it brought us deep down into the middle of those chimneys with a beautiful cinema language. But other than that, for me, all temptations of illustration of Holocaust is just a fake Hollywood thing. So putting that things in my movie would have been a violence on my movie, on the So I think, just stylistically speaking.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because I know from years and years of paying attention to the subject that depicting the Holocaust in film, I think, remains controversial, in the sense that even a film like Schindler's List that won acclaim and awards, even back then there were people, particularly in Jewish communities, who said even a portrayal that is so universally praised, it's not enough to convey it, or it exploits it. There are always criticisms, and some legitimate, I think, when it comes to portraying the camps. So it does make it a different movie than if it had joined all the other movies in trying to do that. And it was, after all, about their lives after, even if memories, of course, pulled them back in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. And there were many long flashbacks in the book, by the way. So we get to know much more about both of their families. Aldo's previous family and Clara's parents, and you get a lot of stories or short stories which I all left out, all slaughtered.
Right, and it's a short running time, and it feels, if anything, I was left maybe wanting more. Right, the other thing about Holocaust films is, or post-Holocaust films even, there have been some pretty long ones, and this film, I think, is so delicate in what it's doing, but it certainly doesn't overstay its welcome. I mean, I think the running time is a strength, personally.
So yeah, sorry, but I didn't get the question. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It was more of a comment. I was just saying the short running time, I think, works in its favor. It's a little shorter than even an hour and a half. It's just under.
Yeah, I really believe that there is a one possible length for a movie, and this film was overshot, as all movies, and every movie loses 20% of its scenes during editing. So I had my own 20%, but it was not needed. After a while you feel that if it's just 123, it's 123. I won't add 1 second just to make it longer, just for the sake of TV program slots or festival requirements.
Right. And you didn't belabor the points, is really what you get from such a clean running time. Let's see. So, to some extent, the film is about how survivors heal. It's about other things too. But I'm wondering, from your perspective, what is most important to Aldo and Clara in their healing process as we see it?
The most important thing in their healing process? It's the ability to take care about somebody. Because every scientific exam, or I don't know, research proved that people who live with a cat or with a dog have a longer life expectancy just because of the company of an animal. And so if it's a human being and you can take care of somebody, it can be your sick parent or your sick son, or or in a normal case or a healthy case, your wife or your husband, if they are alive, or anybody, just to be able to live for somebody. And finally, both of them find somebody to take care of, somebody to live for, a reason. And first it's just a friendship. Then it's a stepfather, stepdaughter. And then it could have been something else in another life or another era, or with another pre-story. Right.
And I think I may not have remembered until I saw your film. I really appreciate films that depict relationships that are hard to categorize, because it makes us think about those categories, and it makes it hard for us to, I don't know, lump in the relationship we're seeing with all the other relationships we've seen on film and that we've experienced. And it makes us think about it as a unique relationship, which of course all are, but I liked that a lot, that it was a hard to categorize relationship. We have a question from an audience member. Is there an English language translation of the original novel, to your knowledge?
There is. I have good news. It's a very recent publication. It will be available on Amazon. I think it is already, at least on ebook, but very soon you can get it in print with the beautiful cover of my film poster.
Oh, it's nice.
And the title will be the title of my movie, I think, which is surprising because it has nothing to do with the title of the book. So I don't know which is the title. I think it will be Those Who Remain, probably. And I don't know the publisher. It's a small Jewish publishing company from Tucson, Arizona, or something. So
wow.
Anyway, it's the internet, so you can get it.
Terrific.
Just Google it. Yes, and coming back to the previous subject about the specialty of the relationship and finding the right balance so that you can have your own choice or variety of the nature of their relationship. It was the hardest part of the job, to find this right balance, because I could have fallen into the trap so easily in the temptation of either the sexual way or either the even more pudic way, when it's just a pure healing process without any temptation from any side. So it was I believe that was a narrow middle to find that right line.
Well, and I think that my experience is, I guess, not everyone's, but I found that there wasn't a moment of it that wasn't believable because of how the characters were developed and how their relationship was developed. It all rang true in terms of if there hadn't been that temptation or that tension, it might not have felt as real because of the circumstances.
Yes.
Marty has a comment. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I never thought about this question, but it's good that we talked about it, because it's interesting and going back to my earlier previous choices. And anyway, yeah, sorry.
That's fine. Marty's comment, this story was extremely similar to that of close friends of my family. I came away with the message of how even after losing your family, you can create a new one.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, I have the chance to talk to people nowadays. It's through Zoom chat like this, but before I had the chance to go personally, before the virus, I went to Chicago, to Palm Springs, to San Francisco, many countries all around the USA, and met the audience after this movie. And I had so many personal meetings and 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute chats about elder people, especially some people who came back directly from the camps. There was a man, Hungarian origin, who said he came back from Auschwitz, but 4 siblings and the mother died, in the camps, and he came back. And then, talking to a person like this, it was so strange. Yes. So there are testimonies, or indirect or second generation testimonies, or just a 30-year-old man, 31, 32, no kids, not even Jewish, who came back from Iraq as I don't know, he served on a nuclear submarine or something, 9 years, and he came back completely depressed. And he saw that movie in Telluride, and he told me that, that was just what he needed now, even just 1.5 hour of hug, It's a long, warm hug, this movie, he said.
Well, after rewatching it, the theme of our festival this year is Hope in a Broken World, which fits different films to different extents, I think. But it resonated for me with this film because particularly the ending, which I found extremely poignant, and particularly the scene, the party with all of them together, right? That's not the last scene, but it's the second to last, penultimate scene. And it's maybe the emotional climax of the film, at least from my perspective. And, part of it was just that even though it's best in most ways for Aldo and Clara to have partners their own age appropriate, particularly from Aldo, I got a sense of yearning, that he knows that he's doing what is best societally and for her, but that their relationship has changed. They're not able to be as close, and there's something sad about that too. So I'm curious as to how you and your co-writer decided to end the film the way that you did.
Yes, that relation changed, as you say, and not returnable, because the innocence fell out from that relationship. Not that and if any of them had done anything wrong, obviously, and he was even more disciplined, but this lifetime friendship is impossible. And maybe that there might have been something, when I said sacrifice on Aldo, I think that he found that new lady just to push Clara away from him. So I don't think that was his only goal or motivation. And luckily, it's a nice lady, and they can live really happily together, honestly, mutually. But it was a tool or a plan B or an escape plan from the relation with Clara, for Clara, so that she can be free with that young guy or with anybody who comes around of her age. So that's why it's a sacrifice for me. And how to end the movie? We had a little when you are in that, we had a dilemma between leaving the last scene as that birthday scene and leave it as a tableau and cut it out there, or add the bus or not. And finally, I think, I just get a sign from somewhere by having that scene, because in the script I wrote, Clara is on the bus, it's a cloudy day, going somewhere, we don't know where. She looks out the window, and as the camera approaches, the sun comes out behind her from the clouds. I wrote it in the script, like imagining if I could influence weather. But we were there on that cloudy day. It was cloudy gray, and the camera started to approach on her face, and the sun came out, from the clouds. So I thought, I leave it in.
Maybe you have more influence than you think.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of influence, I wanted to ask if there are particular filmmakers who, in your opinion, have had the most significant influence on your work, whether that means aesthetically, visually, or thematically in terms of the types of subjects you want to make films about. So I'm curious to hear that.
Yes. For a long time, for long years, I was mainly influenced by humanists like Chaplin or Woody Allen, or Clint Eastwood, if I want to think more modern, or Milos Forman. And then maybe 5 years ago, I started to get more interested in the aesthetics of the movie, of the cinematographic language, of the picture, of the editing, of the colors, of the framing, of the camera movement, of the pace of editing, etc. So my major influences recently are directors who are more concerned about the shape of the movie than the content, like David Fincher, or maybe Danny Boyle or Paul Thomas Anderson, people who are really like poets in picture, but don't want to send a message, or don't want to touch you or hug you, just shows you something.
Right. Yeah, and Fincher is interesting in that he's also so commercially successful, in addition to being acclaimed, which is not always how it goes, but yeah. Well, that was pretty much my list of questions. I am certainly curious if anyone attending has any other comments or questions for Barnabás. and or if not, so Marty says this was her favorite movie of the festival. Fair enough. Yeah. If there's anything we haven't talked about that you think it would be interesting for our audience to know about the film, please do. I don't know if there is anything that, you know, that we haven't touched on that you might want to mention, but.
I hope I can make it one day to Washington.
Well, it is beautiful here, and you know, we'd love to host you if you're ever in the Northwest. So if you're in Seattle sometime, let us know, and it's not too far over.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you.
And thank you for making such a beautiful film.
Viszontlátás.
Hogy? Sorry?
Viszontlátás.
Oh, viszontlátás. Some Hungarian.
Csak egy magyar, igen.
Jó estét kívánok.
Jó estét.
Jó napot kívánok. Örülök.
Igen, itten jó nap, igen.
Okay, nice.
Nagyon jó volt a film, köszönöm.
Thank you. You're welcome. Szívesen.
All right. Very good.
Take care.
You too. Thanks again.